Today, we're going to be doing an opening video. Haven't done one of these in a while. I'm getting organized now. Can do an opening video a week, smacking sweaties a week, a little bit of everything, game review. But today, we're going to be talking about how to crush the Scandinavian with an offbeat line. So, we all know the Scandinavian e4, d5. Black gives up a pawn for a safe position that requires little to no theory. However, that is if we play mainline. I'm going to pitch a sideline today that is very, very fun. Today we're going to exclusively look at queen a5. I'll do other videos on queen d8 and queen d6 as those are the two other theoretical moves. So there's going to be 4 lines in this queen a5 and it begins with the move pawn to b4. So as you can see, you're giving up a pawn for activity. My least favorite Super GM, Nakamura. I saw he had a lot of games with this. This is how I learned this. But yes, b4 giving up a pawn. It would be crazy for black not to take. And why did we do this? So I've seen some people make videos on knight to b5, but we are going to be discussing rook to b1, which is the main line and less trappy. You just get a good, solid position. Now, we're going to talk about a game where I got this, and then we are going to look over the 4 lines of theory. Haven't picked the order yet, to be determined. But queen a5 is one of the moves. The other move is queen to d6 and queen to c5. Queen d6 is the theoretical move. Queen c5, queen a5 means you probably caught your opponent off guard. We're going to look at all 3 of them. But for sake of the argument, let's say they play the main line. The reason I really like this for white is because when people play the Scandinavian, it's like the London. It's one of those pre-move openings up to move 15. Horrible. But they cannot do that. Their light squared bishop is tied down to b7 because you claim the open file now. So they can never move their bishop. And also Scandinavian players love going c6 to bring their queen back. So it's going to disorganize their thoughts. And that's exactly what you want to do against a Scandy player because they do not have a lot of thoughts. They play the Scandinavian. So first we're going to look at how this opening can go wrong for black if they're not prepared. So this is a game I just got that sparked my interest in making this video. Queen a5, b4 takes rook b1, and he was not familiar with it because he went queen back to a5. You see, they mindlessly just like going c6 to prepare their queen to go back. Now, I knew this because my students get this sometimes, so I knew to go rook to b5. And now look, the only move they have with their queen is queen a6. But do not get greedy because ironically, their queen is super safe. So ironically, there's no good discovery on the queen. I wish there was, but there isn't. And I knew there isn't. So gambits are all about activity. So I claim the center right away. Now I control c5 and e5. My dark squared bishop can be diagonal. My dark squared bishop can be developed. I could speak. And this queen is still under pressure later. Are they going to move the queen again and just continue to let me develop? Hopefully. Knight f3 getting developed. Bishop to g4, pinning the knight, but h3. I'm happy if they take my knight because I'm going to aim at that b7 diagonal, which was weakened from giving up the b pawn originally. So they take, they're sick of losing tempos, I guess, and then they go c6. So it looks like they just about consolidated, but this queen over here is horrible. Now, I missed the winning idea. I thought I needed to guard this knight, but it didn't really change anything, and then I found it a move later. So I went bishop to d2. I thought my knight needed to be guarded for everything to work, but my queen was already guarding the knight, so oops. But they could never take this because then you win the queen. So that is good. So bishop to d2, kind of a tempting move, tempting them into a mistake. They go knight bd7, and now I elect to use the discovery. So I just didn't want them to go queen b6 and then have their queen get back into the game. So I went rook b4. I could have also went rook b3, and then it'd be even scarier for them to go a5. But I wanted them to go a3 because that's kind of more in no man's land, and they did. So queen a3. Now I take on b7. That is why they could not move their light squared bishop. They tried to get their pieces developed to castle. I win c6. Now they are pinned, and it just comes down to technique. Do we offer a queen trade in positions like this? Or they offer queen trade in positions like this. Do we accept? No, we do not, because they can't move. Why would you simplify a position when they can't move? So bishop to e7, maybe they're trying to just ditch the knight, get castled, play down a piece, see what happens. No, knight b5. GG's. This queen has nowhere to go. It can go to c6, it can go to d5. If it goes to d5, it gets forked. And if it goes to c6, another fork with a discovery picks up the queen. So they would need to give up the queen. And so after knight to b5, they resigned. So aside from bishop to d2, a good game. And this is how wrong it could go for black when they're not accustomed to it. But let's talk about how it plays out when they are accustomed to it. So we're going to look at the main line first, queen d6, and then we're going to look at queen c5, as you guys just saw queen a5. So queen to d6, now d4. Remember, it's all about activity, pushing 4 in the center. Now, b6 is a mistake, so we're going to look over their main line or their best chess first. So c6, just playing it like a Scandinavian. They love this pawn on c6. Be aware in the middle game, it's kind of like a Slav. They're either going to break with c5 or e5, but that's more middle game ideas. So knight to f3, just develop. And I want to stress not pure memorization. You have to understand the flow of these positions, as with all openings, but you need to understand the flow of the position. And then the correct ideas will come to you, or more or less good ideas will come to you. When you stress memorization, you're not even thinking about the position, and that's way worse. So pawn e6, again, they cannot move their light squared bishop. If they move their light squared bishop, you just win the b7 pawn, and their position is going to crumble. So e6, they have to just accept that they have a garbage light squared bishop, which they hate to do when playing the Scandinavian. And now look at this. So a key motif is that they are just boxed in. I was thinking of a different line. Rook b3, bishop a3 is fine, but we'll go over that. This one, I'm just talking about developing as fast as possible, claiming the center, everything is defended. You must think, let's say they castle, which I did input. This is one of those discovered tactics if this knight wasn't there. So be aware of that. Maybe you'll get that in a game. Something to consider. Okay, knight to e4, freeing up the c-pawn, also centralizing. And our queenside knight was of less value than their kingside knight because their kingside knight is providing a ton of defense towards their king. So our queenside knight was a little awkward. Their kingside knight was very good. We removed their good knight. We rook lift into the center of the board. And now we have a bunch of attacking prospects. This third rank is critical. Rook on the b file, up and over. Still pinning their bishop down. There's bishop to a3. These are kind of the main ideas. Knight e5, queen h5. Look at all these open lines, all for the cost of a pawn. Yes, it says the position is equal, but you are down a pawn. So is the position equal? No. The imbalance is equal. And that favors the side with activity typically. So I hope you guys enjoyed the first line. Now we are going to look at what to do. Okay, let's say they go queen d6, but then let's say, hey, I want to move my light squared bishop. So I'm going to move my b pawn, and you can never win my b pawn. Maybe I'll fianchetto. Problem is they don't have time to fianchetto. We go knight b5 right away, hitting the queen. This looks like hope chess, yet it's not. If they go back, we go queen f3. How are they going to guard the rook? Well, they need to go pawn c6, but that doesn't really work out. Bishop f4, how are they going to guard against this? They're not. So they're forced to take the knight, and then you win the rook. That's pretty good. Let's say they go knight a6. You're like, hey, that stops the fork. Well, enter another problem for them. Here, bishop d7. This is just game over. You're going to snap the knight off. That looks like checkmate or losing a queen. Horrible for black. Absolutely horrible. So that's if they go queen back to d8. If they go queen c6, it's just as bad. Bishop e2, we're going to do it this way. They claim this diagonal, so we're going to counterclaim it. Bishop to f3 is a sniper move that would just win material. They can't get greedy. Let's say queen takes g2. Bishop f3, I mean, this is resignable already. You're going to win the rook. So in essence, understand that b6 is a horrible mistake for black. c6 should be the way to go. That's what we reviewed. Now, one of my students had a game in a tournament where his opponent went queen c5. What does this do? Well, this stops d4. So memory not needed, understanding very much needed. Knight f3. We can't go d4, so go knight f3. And then rook b3. So we're playing it like this with bishop to a3. And the point is this kind of stops e6 because then they can't castle. And remember, so neither of their bishops could get developed. I mean, all this for the b pawn, and you're already claiming the b file. It's honestly amazing. Bishop e2, activity. So if there's nothing there, go for activity. If there is something there, jump on that. Obviously. Queen a5, they can't castle, and now pawn d4. We get our pawn to d4 regarding this guy. Everything is good. We are going to castle. Life is good. So this is all I inputted. But let's say h6, you see, we would just castle. It's really not about memory over here. What do you want to do? You could really do anything. Queen d2, all your pieces are activated. Their pieces cannot move. Yes, the position is in the balance, but I like white's prospects here. So I hope you guys try this Scandinavian line. We can go over all Scandinavian theory. Like, for example, I like to play, let's say they play queen d8. It's not going to be in this video. I like to play bishop c4 and not pawn to d4. Because pawn to d4, they have all these tricks and traps, and I don't need the center. I'll just go d3. I got my light squared bishop out of the pawn chain. Life is fine for me. It might enter tactics like this. Bishop to g4. You even have bishop takes f7, knight e5 check. Have you guys ever gotten this before? Crushing. But I like to play offbeat stuff like this sometimes. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.